G'day humans, Chris Stead from Finder here. We're talking NFT games, and today the topic is Pegaxy, as in Pegasus Galaxy, Pegaxy. Now, this can be played right now through your browser on PC or Mac, and there is mobile versions planned for later in 2022. Now, it's kind of a horse racing simulator in which you get access to a Pega NFT and you enter that into a race, and depending on its results in that race, you are rewarded with a monetary reward. Never has the worlds of betting and video game been so closely combined as they are in this game, in my opinion. But is it any fun? Is it an actual game here? Does this thing have a future? Look, we're going to dive in, tackle all that right now. The gameplay in Pegaxy is effectively non-existent as of early 2022. This is almost purely a simulation at this point. So you get access to a Pega NFT either through purchasing it or for renting it. You then enter that into a race. You're match made with 11 other contestants which have very similar Pega in their stables. They then race over a certain distance on stadiums which have randomly generated conditions, and basically it's a random number generator that works out whether or not you win. That's the majority of what decides whether or not you're going to be a first, second or third place getter or be one of the lower places. However, each Pega itself does have certain statistics which will play a role, and the stadiums that you are racing in and the distance that you are covering also plays a role, because the stadiums have randomly generated stats, and how well those synergize with the stats of your Pega can also play a minor role in how you'll perform. Now, you can race 25 times a day, and if you become first, you get 105 VIS, and I will explain more about the tokenomics later on. You get 44 VIS for coming second, and you get 26 VIS for coming third. Now, this could change over time. That roughly works out to about $12 US, $5 US, and $3 US as of the time that I'm saying this. So that is basically the core experience. You try and select or choose a Pega that you think is going to perform well based on the data that you can see on the dashboard and in the UI, based on its previous victories and wins, all that kind of thing. You play the numbers game, you try and enter it in 25 races a day, you try and win 3-4 of those races, maybe get a couple of second and thirds here and there. A lot of it's based on luck, and you will come out with a tidy monetary sum at the end of that day. In my opinion, the gameplay at this point is pretty much underdone. Look, there has been progress. When the game was first released, it was literally just a 2-down view of some static horse shapes that were moving along a racetrack like this, and it was very just almost an Excel sheet with graphics, right? They have improved that dramatically. They've provided now a 3D view of the 12 contestants running through a stadium, but their animations, the way it comes across, is still a bit jolty. The sound effects are horrifically poor. A couple of arcade blips and blops here and there, but no crowd cheering, no atmosphere, nothing like that. And you obviously aren't engaged in any sort of way with the actual playing. So at this point, I think, unless you're a big data guy and you're really into the numbers and that side of things, then you're probably not going to fall in love with it. If you want to play skill-based gameplay, that's not there yet. However, it is coming. So they are looking by about Q3 2022 to have implemented a full 3D racing game where you are controlling and they're moving away from the random number generator as defining who wins, to moving to more skill-based gameplay where you actually have to know what you're doing and be hands-on with your performance. They're also adding things like gear, which will accentuate your statistics, and also food, which you can use as buffs to give yourself, you know, a little extra stamina or strength, or one of your elemental powers, those types of things, just up those up. And they're even talking about potentially introducing weapons at some point in the future based on whether the community wants it or not. But at this stage, that stuff isn't implemented. Now, I still think it's kind of fun because, you know, if you like, say, Football Manager, or, you know, back in the old days, we used to play a lot of games like this where there wasn't much in the way of graphics, and it all was basically behind the scenes number and dice rolling, and you're just managing that. So it's still fun to a certain extent. But if you're into that skill-based gameplay, you're probably going to be disappointed at this point in time. And one of the things that is missing now that I think they could implement, because it is data, is any sort of leveling up process. So there's no reward for the grind of doing 25 races beyond the monetary. You're not like slowly gaining XP and leveling your Pega up through some of its attributes and skills. So I think that's a real missed opportunity, and I can't even see mention of that on the roadmap at this point. So that's a hole in the gameplay as I see it as of early 2022. One thing I think we can all enjoy is the breeding side of things. So breeding two NFTs together is a big part of Pegaxy, and like the thrill of opening a Pokemon card pack, like what you're going to get on the other side is something to, that provides a thrill. It's very cathartic, it's rewarding, it always has been. So the fact that there's 5 different breeds, 4 different bloodlines, 6 different attributes, and the way that those mix together when you breed two NFTs, breed two Pega to create a new Pega, is part of the exciting part of what Pegaxy offers. Now, when you breed two, they will take on the lowest rarity traits of the two. So if you've got a rare or a legendary Pega and you mate it with the Pacer, which is the lowest tier of the breeds, then you're going to end up with a Pacer. You're not going to get something in between. So that's the way it works. Now, what is a bit of a barrier to entry for the breeding experience is the cost, right? So obviously you need to have 2 NFTs to begin with, and I'll talk about the cost of those later, but you also need to pay to do the breeding. Now, each animal can be bred 7 times, and the base breeding at the time of riding costs about $250, and then it goes up and up and up till you get to the 7th time you breed it, which costs you $5,000 US as of the time that I'm saying this. So that's reasonably significant, but you will be happy to know they've pointed out that they are just metal beasts, not real beasts. So if you want to breed a dad with its kid, it's cool. Purely looking at the Pega as a collectible NFT, look, they're kind of cool. They look really nice. They've done a really good job with the 3D model and the colorization and the patterns that you will come across. They look nice. There's a lot of detail there, but there's no difference in the shape. So they're all basically using the same 3D model. There's no difference in the way that they gallop. There's no personality about them. And I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think a bit more effort could have been in there. Like there could have been significant differences in the types of breeds and bloodlines so you can spot them obviously when you're looking at them. And the implementation of gear later in 2022 could help that. I mean, gear won't be free. It's an NFT in itself, but you'll be able to gear up and I guess accessorize your Pega a little bit. But from what I've seen so far, there isn't a hell of a lot of different gear coming. I think there's 4 different types. So we'll see how that unfolds, but I'd like to see them do more with the actual base shapes of the NFTs to give them a bit more pizzazz as a collectible. Let's talk about the tokenomics quickly. And look, as like games such as Axie Infinity, there's 2 different coins to think about. Now, the game itself is built off the Polygon blockchain, so you're going to have to start off by acquiring Matic, and then once you've got that, you'll need to exchange that into PGX, which is the Pegaxy. It's called Pegaxy Stone, and that is kind of the utility coin. That's what you're going to be using to doing your breeding, your purchasing, your renting, things like that in game. Then you've got the VIS or Vigorous token, which is your monetary reward. And that's what you're going to get when you're winning races, effectively. So those are the 2 things to look at. What they do well on the marketplace is they also show you what the value of things is in US dollars. So it gives you a bit of an indication at the moment that you're making the purchase about how much you're spending in real money, as well as in the PGX and the VIS, or VIS, which is the 2 economies that you're dealing with while you're playing the game. The reality though is that this is not a cheap game to get into. When I did a little bit of research, or a lot of research, on the game before doing this, the cheapest NFT you could buy, so the cheapest Pega, the lowest level Pega you could buy, was still going to set you back about 1,200 US. Okay, so that's a significant buy-in. Now there is a free-to-play mode in this. It's not, they can call it free-to-play, but you can play without investing or investing significantly by renting someone else's Pega. Now this is all handled in-house. It is set up so that guilds can operate and you can do your renting through a guild, but it is also set up within the marketplace on there. So a person who owns a Pega can quite easily set up a smart contract that you as a player who doesn't have a Pega can come in and use, and you can either do it as a profit share, in which case you're paying nothing, this is the free-to-play mode, where you will get 5% of the earnings. Now, when I crunch the maths on that, if you were to race 25 races on a day with one that you've got a profit share arrangement, which tend to be around 5% if you're lucky, you might get about US $2 a day. Okay, something around that. You know, you might get luckier, you might not get luckier. You can also rent them for a period of time. Now I've seen these being rentable from 1 day up to multiple months. And I've seen a 1 day basic breed Pega go for around $40 US to $50 US, somewhere around that thing. So then you get about 25 races to waste in that day. Obviously that price per day comes down if you start buying it in bulk. And you're using PGX, the Pegaxy stone, to into that rental agreement. Otherwise, you're looking at purchasing it outright, which is going to cost you $1,200, and I've seen them go up to $300,000. I don't know if anyone's actually paying that, but I've seen them listed as that. The marketplace itself is designed really, really well. They've done a really good job with that. It's very clear to follow. It's very obvious what everything is. There's lots of data you can dive into very easily. There's a range of different contracts that can be set up between the buyer and the seller, or the renter and the owner. It's all very clear to understand, and that side of it, they've done it really, really well. So from a foundation perspective of setting up an ecosystem, the developers at Pegaxy, which don't have a name, have done a really good job. That marketplace will expand into the future too. We have seen, for example, gear that I've already mentioned to you, but they're also bringing stadiums in it. So you can actually own the stadium, and then the race events will effectively pay you a fee to use your stadium. So that's kind of the next level of NFTs we're going to see appear in the marketplace alongside gear, and you'll also be able to do some staking as well into the future. So is Pegaxy a good investment? Look, I dived into the numbers of it, and if you're owning the NFTs, actually looking pretty good in this particular game. So even though you got to pay in about $1,200 US to gain access to the base one, and you could end up spending $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. Like, let's be realistic. If you want to get one that's, you know, high up the tree, but you purchase that, and you can make about $40 US a day. That's just like on average, right? So there's 25 races that you can do a day. You've got a 25% chance, because there's 12 people in a race, you've got a 25% chance of placing 1, 2, or 3. So get a couple of firsts, get a couple of seconds, get a couple of thirds, and you're going to walk out with about $40 US as the price of VIS is for the time I'm writing this. So therefore, at around the 30-day mark, you should have pulled back about your 1,200. So that's not too bad, right? From a play to earns perspective, it's way more marginal. You know, I've seen most daily rentals go for about $40 to $50 US on the basic levels. Like, you have to pay more for a higher ranked Pega that's potentially going to give you more wins. But on the lower ones, you know, if you just get those basic numbers I was talking about before, and you might make $40 US back, and you've spent $50 US to rent it for the day, it's very marginal. You're really having a stroke of luck or two to kind of start making anything out of it if you're playing this as a play to earn game. Obviously the profit share thing takes the risk away from that, but you get bugger all money for it. So I think as a play to earn experience, while the door's wide open for it to be quite compelling moving forward, I just think it's pretty marginal right now. However, the idea of owning an NFT in this space is reasonably exciting, because it's quite a clear and obvious pathway through to getting that, recouping that investment and getting your money back, and then start playing in the black. And that's when you can start looking at breeding and things like that, and building up your NFT counts, which is going to get you a lot of value. So if you want to play to earn from the perspective of owning a Pega, I think this game's looking really quite good, and there's a lot of interest in it. So I'm expecting the value to increase if they continue on their roadmap and continue to improve the game like they have already. But from a play to earn perspective, I think there's a bit that needs to be done there to make it really something that's compelling more than based on luck. Of course, if you love betting and you love having a punt, then by all means get in there and have a go. Luck could be with you. Overall, when I compare Pegaxy to a lot of the NFT games I've been seeing in this space, I'm pretty impressed with the way they've gone about it. Yes, they've started off without the fully realised, developed, skill-based game that they intend to get to. However, what they've started with is a genuine simulation of horse racing. It's fun. The marketplace is designed really, really well. There's depth of data there. There's plenty of analysis. You can dive into the numbers. The breeding side of it provides that kind of excitement about what could come. And so I think they've done a really good job in just building a really solid foundation that's perfectly playable and fun, and has a clear progression path to how you can, you know, also make money out of it on the way. So from that side of things, I think they've done a really good job. I feel like if you're not just into that data side of thing, if you don't get an excitement and a thrill out of throwing a few bucks on the horses at the pub, then you just may be better off waiting until it's a skill-based game and seeing how it goes in when it's more of a, I guess, kart racing experience, where you're actually controlling these things and mastering the stadiums and mastering your particular Pega. At that point, it becomes a really exciting game for all. So just go in it with those expectations in mind at that point. I'm Chris Stead from Finder. That's the latest NFT game that I've been exploring, Pegaxy. Definitely worth keeping an eye on for sure, and possibly worth even investing in at this early stage in its production cycle, because things are looking good. Make sure you head across to finder.com.au website, where I've got a massive article on it where I talk through a lot of what I've just talked about in more detail. Otherwise, have fun, happy gaming, no worries. See you later.